The presenting sponsor of Moon Tower Soccer is FVF Law.
To find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm, you can visit fvf.law.
Hello, friends, and thanks for listening to Moon Tower Soccer. This week, we'll be joined by David Goss of SoccerWise to talk about Austin FC's search for their next sporting director and head coach. We'll also answer a bunch of listener questions and talk about a little bit of Austin FC news. My name's Landon Cottom, and I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Jeremiah Bentley.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jeremiah Bentley. And Landon, you were just telling me before we started recording that you just celebrated your 10-year anniversary in Austin. And just like every Austinite, I believe it's your duty now to tell us how it was coolest the day you got here. Tell us about all the places that were awesome, that are gone now, and everything sucks now. And just kind of bag on the city today. Like, is that where you're planning on going in this discussion?
No, I'm not going to do that because
Okay.
I like to stay positive. But also, I feel like, I don't know, Jeremiah, you and I have talked about this before, and maybe this will get us in trouble, but there's a lot of like old Austin stuff that stopped existing because it was bad. And people have nostalgia for like a version of what it once was, but it was no longer that thing. I feel like I haven't lost a lot of stuff that I loved yet, which means probably it's going to start happening in the next few years.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally, I'm pretty pleased with it. But we have a little tradition where, so I was living in Spain, got a job here, got on a plane, I think on Sunday night from Spain, landed in Dallas on Monday, drove to Austin on Tuesday, started a job on Wednesday. And that Tuesday night, we got an Airbnb in South Austin, and me and Ashley walked to this restaurant just because it was close. It was like, okay, there's Mexican food. Let's go eat this Mexican place. And so we haven't done it every year, but most years for the last 10 years around our like Austin anniversary, we'll go and eat at this Mexican restaurant. It's not very good. And it is more expensive every year we go and less full of people every year we go. So maybe that's going to be the first thing that closes that we're sad about, is this subpar Mexican restaurant. But while we were there, Ashley always asks, she's very good at asking insightful questions, but she was asking like, could you have told yourself 10 years ago that you wouldn't believe then? Or like you would be excited about or surprised by? And there are quite a few things, but one of the things was like that Austin would have a soccer team, period, but that we would have this show and we would have gotten to do all this cool stuff that we get to do because of this show that we created. And I think I would have been shocked if you'd have told me that 10 years ago.
Man, I totally agree with you. And just even down to the basics of it, maybe this is a question, like even the two of us finding each other through soccer and making this show for 300 episodes and 6 years or whatever now, like is not anything that I would have ever thought about. And it's I've talked about this a lot, but one of the things that I love the most about this whole Austin FC experience is the fact that like I have friends from all over the city, you know, all walks of life, employed, unemployed, like people I would have never met who are really close friends of mine that like just would have never been in my circles. And then some people who are, and it's just like, it's such a cool experience. Yeah. And there's always like meeting the Queen of the Netherlands and like,
Yeah.
some of this other like random, like really cool, like seeing Ilya in slides when he like came to his first press conference, and some of the behind the scenes stuff we've gotten to do, and like all that is just incredible. So like, yeah, man, I agree. It's been quite a ride. And I do, back to the point about sort of like Austin institutions, like for sure, like the food scene is way better than it was when I got here. Like, and honestly, like the entire like bar, beer, whatever scene is like way better too. Like there's so many more choices and options for things to go and see and do that there were. And like some of the classic stuff is still here. Well, it's fine. I'm willing to die on that hill.
All right, let's get into the soccer. So we're going to do some of the news up top, then we'll get into our interview with David Goss, and then we'll do some listener questions towards the end. So let's start off with news. We had news last week that Jayden Nelson was not selected to the final roster of the Canadian national team. I don't think that had been confirmed as of the last show.
Yeah, newer than we recorded, yeah.
But so there was an injury. Marcelo Flores, was injured just a couple of days ago, and that kind of opens up a spot that they will need to replace him on the roster. Jaden Nelson, as far as like for like replacements, is one of the candidates there. So if maybe they decide to go for a different position or whatever because they have a couple of injuries and maybe they need to replace, they feel like they want to go elsewhere for that replacement. But if they go like for like, there's a good chance Nelson ends up on this World Cup roster, and he is on the bench right now as we speak for Canada during one of their friendlies, which you would have to think that at least means he's still in contention. Like they're still considering it maybe.
Yeah, and that would be awesome for him because I think we talked about this last week, but he's the last hope for Austin FC to have a player on a World Cup roster because it's like Austin has no shortage of players who are on national teams. We have shortage of players on national teams who are very good.
Yeah, exactly. There's some other news here as well. Jeremiah, tell us what you know about this mysterious third jersey.
Yeah, I feel like we talked about the third jersey at least a couple times. If you really want to get into it, you can listen to Emergency Podcast with Phil and Moises, who talked about it, gave some input, believe that at least one of them has like seen it in person, and I think it's part of a series that the league has of clubs who are going to have a third jersey. So the things that we've heard are like light purple.
This is like you and I had heard stuff about the jersey, but pretty much all we didn't see anything, and all we knew was a color.
Yeah, right. Let's go with the color. The color is the one thing we know.
People have now seen it, and that's starting to leak out. So we have more details about it now.
Yeah. So it's violet base, white horizontal chest stripe with Austin on it, a collar, which I think is interesting, like a white collar. And I feel like there was a lot of talk about, like, would this be a collar or no collar jersey? The white secondary crest, and then matching shorts. Those are all things that we've heard about it. I think We Are Austin TV on Instagram, like, did a kind of AI mock-up of what it might look like. So I wouldn't take that as gospel. I mean, I find it seems very related to, not related, but very similar in a way to the No Comply jersey, which is not an official one, which is the one that is my favorite of everything that we've gotten and the one that I wear the most. And it's partly because of the collar and just like the design's a little bit interesting. But maybe it's not quite as interesting as that one from what we hear.
Jeremiah, you can probably guess where I stand on this one based on past preferences. Well, where would you say, if this is like the best version of what we've seen from this AI Instagram post, where would you put it on my ranking?
I think you would be into it if it is the best. Wait, if this AI post is the best version of it, or if it like is the best?
No, if the real one is like the best version of what that looks like.
I'm gonna go with you're into it.
I'm way into it. I think this is
That's
like maybe top 2 or 3 all time. Yeah. If it looks even like I said, like the nicer version of whatever this is, because it is. I saw some people looking at like the weird font on the front, and I was like,
nobody knows.
It is AI. Yeah. This is a technology that doesn't know how many fingers humans have and cannot count to 10. So don't worry about that part. Just take the vibes of it, and the vibes overall, I'm way into. So I'm pretty excited about this one.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to hear more about it and finally see it when we get to see it. We don't really have anything details, I think, on when this is going to be revealed to the world, other than it's like later this year.
Let's move on to a couple of pieces of transfer news or transfer rumors, kind of. There was some reports out of Brazil that this was pretty vague, but it was like there was a scout at a game to watch this player who was from Austin FC. This guy's name is Jaci Maranhão Oliveira, plays for, is it Coritiba? Do you remember the team? I didn't write it down.
I don't even remember the team. I
think
just
plays for
barely
Coritiba.
Saw the rumor. And, yeah.
But big 28-year-old Brazilian center back. I watched just some quick highlights. Looks like a good player. I'm not going to put a ton of stock into this because, okay, Austin FC scouts were watching this player. First question is when? Like, was this 6 months ago? Because that sporting director is not here anymore.
Does that scout have a job anymore? Yeah.
So if it was last week, okay, maybe Austin does still have feelers out, and I don't know who they're talking to or who they're sending these reports to. Maybe they're just making a file folder and we'll give it to the next guy that comes in. But Um, looks like it would be a good player, but as we talked about last week, don't know how we're going to make room for him, and don't know if it's real anyway. So we don't need to spend too much time on that.
But I would just say on the face of it, like I think we've come to realize over the last few weeks that another good center back maybe is not the greatest need that Austin has. You talked about this last week when we talked about the salary stuff, but it's definitely pretty high up the list of where we would need help if we can find the right person at the right price.
Yeah, for sure. And this is kind of a non-update, but there was another interview that I saw getting shared around with Uzuni, where he's in camp with the Albanian national teams. We had a few more guys get called up for friendlies. I think Uzuni, Rosales, Pereira, maybe a couple of other people, but all for teams that didn't make the World Cup. So they'll just be playing friendlies with their national team. But in a press conference with Albania, he was asked about his future with Austin. He kind of just reiterated what he had said before, like, yeah, there was a move, it was close, it didn't end up happening. But this was a thing that Burrell kind of hinted at in a press conference, and then Uzuni kind of hinted at here, that the reason it didn't happen was because that Austin couldn't find a replacement fast enough. And so that, at the very least, that gives me hope that like a move this summer is possible, that it wasn't because they backed out or the money wasn't right or whatever. It's like, we don't have a striker if we sell him right now, so we can't sell him right now. Yeah, maybe that means he moves this summer and opens up a DP spot for us.
And maybe Brandon Vasquez becomes that guy and we actually sign a playmaking 10. That would be pretty rad, but probably not super likely. Do you want to go on to this? So there is a match at Q2 Stadium this weekend. I'm super interested to see how many people show up for this. So, but we've talked about, people have heard about in the past, Saudi Arabia is using Q2 Stadium as their home training ground. They were friendly on June 5th at 6 p.m. versus...
Probably they're using St. David's, right?
Oh, shoot. Yes, they are using St. David's as their home training ground, but also have access to Q2. And there will be a match at Q2, Saudi Arabia versus Puerto Rico this weekend. Do you expect people to show up, and maybe like, why do it here and not at City at Palmer Field? Is it just because it's like, is it just so they can play on the grass?
I would imagine so. I bet they want to play on the surface and get more of the stadium atmosphere to make it feel like a real game for the World Cup. I don't know that the crowd's going to do that for them. The tickets aren't expensive. I think you could get in for $25, which isn't crazy, but also, who cares?
Yeah. Did you see the deal? Oh, it was before the Senegal game. I don't know if you were on social media, and like the Senegal players were like testing the field with how the ball bounced, and they were like saying, you know, every European was freaking out about how this World Cup stadium, like, grass didn't act effectively, and then somebody pointed out, like, this is not a World Cup stadium. There's no matches here. The actual stadium's grass has been laid down weeks earlier. Did you notice that storyline?
And no, but I hope that's true. Like, I hope that the real stadiums do have grass that functions, because they are still mostly stadiums that, like, that grass was not there before, and there probably hasn't been many games played on it. So yeah, there has been more prep, and I hope more attention paid to it, because that grass was weird, and we've seen
it was weird. Yeah.
How many international games have we seen played in the U.S. where the grass is weird? So I'll be skeptical until I see the ball bounce more than a foot off the ground on a goal kick.
Surely for the World Cup will do that, but you know what? You never know.
Yeah, FIFA's never done anything wrong.
Oh, right. And then we got the some details for this Auditorium Shores live viewing on June 11th and June 12th. It's going to be downtown. They're going to show the 4 opening matches, including U.S., Mexico, and Canada opening. They ask people to register. I'm pretty sure you can just go down, but I'm guessing they ask you to register to have some idea what the crowd is going to be like.
Yeah, I would imagine it won't matter once you show up. Kind of like a South by Southwest activation or something, where it's probably not going to fill up. Maybe it will, who knows, but I would guess that space won't fill up, and they probably won't ask. But register just in case, because I don't want to be the reason you don't get in.
It won't be like when we saw Chappell Roan at South by Southwest 2 years ago, and like I thought we were all going to die in the crush of teenage girls. So it's on the 11th. It's Mexico versus South Africa at 2, Korea versus Czechia at 9, and then on the second day, which is the 12th, it is Canada at 2 and the U.S. versus Paraguay at 8. I imagine the Mexico and Canada games are going to be the big draws for the fans. But yeah, check it out.
We also got some other news the other day about an open training session. This is going to be July 18th, the week before the league kicks back off and Austin FC starts playing games. This is going to be a first look. Like we've seen this kind of thing, and I think a lot of like the hardcore fans enjoy it. But this is going to be a first look at a new coach, possibly some new players. So I think there will be maybe some interest in this. Do you think that's true, or will the new folks need to right the ship a little bit before people
Yeah,
start
I think
to care?
there will be. No, I think there will be. I mean, I think the Austin FC sickos will show up for anything. I think this is like, we talked about Ilie at the start of the show. Like, remember, that was also an open training. Maybe the first open training at Q2 Stadium was the one where we got to go do the media interview with him and then watch him train. And it was cold then. It won't be cold for sure on July 18th.
No.
So hopefully in the morning it won't be oppressively hot. But I think people will show up for that, just because the interest in, like you said, like the new coach, the new sporting director, they get some indications about the way the team's going to play. And I think people will be ready by then. And there are some season ticket holders who probably will like watch the World Cup and get really geeked up about it and want to go see any soccer they can consume. So I'd imagine there'll be a lot of interest in that.
Yeah, I know. This is true of me, and then a lot of other people, that you start to get the itch a little bit after you've been away from the stadium for too long. So I'll definitely be trying to go. All right, I think that is all. Should we move on to the interview with Goss now?
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, we already did the interview in real time. Always a good dude, always gracious with his time, always has a lot of interesting insights from a broader perspective than what we have. And I think we learned a little bit too, sort of about the Austin FC coaching search and sporting director search, like with him. So I think folks will enjoy this.
Yeah, and it's not. We didn't expect this to be the case, but he's not going to come on and say like Austin's interviewing this guy and this guy. Like, that's not what's happening, and he doesn't know that. But Goss is truly like the best in the business. I think he's one of the I was going to say in the know. He's not like breaking news a lot, but he's studied. Like, he just knows the game in this country very, very well, has seen it all, has experienced it all. And so kind of that contextual knowledge is why we wanted to have him on to talk about this stuff. And I think listeners are really going to like this. So we will go to the Goss interview now, and then we'll come back after that and do some listener questions. We have some fun ones there, so stick around till the end. When no one is around. Moontower Soccer is brought to you by our friends at FEF Law.
FEF is a different kind of personal injury law firm dedicated to community, transparency, and client education. And they have their own podcast called Summary Judgment that you can check out wherever you get your podcasts.
You can go to FEF.law to find out what makes FEF a different kind of injury law firm and why understanding your legal options can dramatically change the outcome of a case. Once again, that's FEF.law. Amplify Credit Union is a member-owned financial cooperative that served the needs of Central Texans for over 5 decades. As a credit union, Amplify has no shareholders or parent companies. That means more of your money stays in the community.
Amplify has been the home of fee-free banking since 2022. Their free checking accounts come with 0 overdraft fees or minimum balance. That means Amplify's fee-free checking accounts can help you get more mileage from your everyday spending.
Amplify membership is open to any Texas resident. Learn to trust your bank again at Amplify Credit Union. To learn more and to register for free parking at the Esperanza branch on game day, visit goamplify.com/moontower. All right, we are back, and we are pleased to be joined by David Goss of SoccerWise. David, good to see you, man.
Great to be back. Thanks for having me on.
Last time I saw you in person, we were at the
the
stadium.
Best
in
night
Miami.
to be an Austin fan in the last 10 years.
Yeah, maybe. But you had just predicted that Austin was going to play spoiler at Miami's stadium opening. So thank you for doing that.
It was a great night. I had a blast. Oh, look, I have my actually, this was a pure coincidence, but I have my Austin scarf that someone gave me, Los Verdes, at that game. But
nice.
It just sits on the table with me all the time. It was a ton of fun, and probably not a great thing that was the high point. But I think a little bit indicative of like There's talent in there. Is there clear ideas? Is there a vision? I'm not sure, but there's talent.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the interview now is probably going to be focused on this sporting director and coaching hiring search. It was a couple of weeks ago during Soccer Wise, the news broke while y'all were on air. I thought y'all did a great job doing that off the dome. What was that like reacting in real time?
I mean, it wasn't unexpected, right? There, of all the firings that have occurred in MLS, which is a lot, there's 8 now for coach this season, which I believe is already one more than all of last year. And then 2-3 years ago, there was like 13 one season. None of them have been shocks. So you're already kind of mentally, I mean, we're talking about it. Like Austin fans are asking us. So we're talking about it, about, oh yeah, there are problems. It hasn't been good enough. I think the surprise was that it was both. And I think that was a promising surprise for people. So I think for us, at first, when you're on with Tom and you break something, then it's like, well, I got to make sure this is real. So it's like I had to go to the official site because I can't just say it based off the stuff on social and the text I got because Tom didn't say it. So what's going on? So you had to go to the official site, make sure you read it right, and then read it through like a couple times while they were talking about something else to be like, okay, and it is both of them. And then coming off that, I think for us, it's, you know, we live in this stuff. This is the league we cover and we love it and all of that. It is starting to process like, okay, what do these mean? What does this mean? And I think one of the things that's really hard with Austin, I'm sure you guys have talked about this, is Burrell's done a lot of long-term work recently. So it is not one of those where you're like, all right, this guy's gone, this guy's gone, this guy's gone. Like you could reshift the roster quickly. It's very similar to when Burrell took over, where it feels like the roster is kind of locked into his space. And I think that part is, in talking about it, I think it felt very much more like, okay, what's the future of the club? But harder to say, like, this is how this group changes a lot over the next 9 months.
Yeah. So, David, we were going to do listener questions tonight, and some of them happened to be stuff that we kind of wanted to get into with you. So we actually threw in some of our listener questions here. Jeremiah, do you want to hit us with this first one?
Yeah, but hit the first one. It's this question from Ed Coates. Said, I wasn't surprised. This touches a little bit on what you just talked about. Wasn't surprised by the coach's departure, but was surprised that Roto was fired. Do you think it was planned to let them go together, or could it be that ownership wanted a coaching change and Roto didn't want to? So ownership said, if you don't do this, you're gone too.
I would be shocked
if
Roto put his own job on the line for Nico Estevez. I think every sporting director in every sport on the planet wants to hire their coach. So if you're firing the coach and you don't fire Burrell, then you're now in a long runway where if you fire Burrell, you need to fire the next coach. So it kind of, one starts to force each other if you are at that point. Like if you're, look at Portland, right? Portland's like, Ned Grabavoy is our guy. He runs this team. Like that's not really in question. So they go and fire their coach. I think it was in flux for Austin because of the way the team performed and the situation they were in. So if you didn't do them both because you wanted to do one of them, you kind of put yourself in a really bad spot for a longer term. And this is a conversation we're having around Philly right now. The owners pay these guys. When the coach gets fired, they get paid. So if you fire a coach and then you hire a new coach under this sporting director and you fire them, when you hire that third coach, you will be paying 3 people to coach your soccer team.
Yeah. My reaction was similar to your, David's, where the actual question here was like, do you think Roto stuck his neck out for Nico? And I'm saying absolutely not. Like, just, I don't know the man super well, but from what little I know about him, I don't think he would stick his neck out for him. And then also just in press conferences and stuff, he often acted pretty like indifferent towards Estevez and like never really went out of his way to protect him or make him look good. He's just like, oh yeah, he's the coach. I signed the players. He puts them on the field. And so, yeah, that part doesn't sound right to me. But then about the like why now part, I think there maybe are still some questions there where that it could just be timing. Like you said, like, okay, we want to get rid of the coach. We don't like the direction it's going. We have this opportunity to go ahead and do both. But there's also like some questions in my mind of like, was there something else going on that maybe just for the job that he did, because we point out the bad signings he made, which there are several, but some of these signings are quite good and like will be on the team. Like if there's an overhaul, some of these pieces will stay, and they're Burrell's signings. So what, like, I don't know. Do you get the idea that there was something else going on, or is it strictly just performance based?
I've heard, and I'm sure you guys have heard the same, that he's not an easy person to work with. And so I think that is probably something at some point, with the amount of turnover you have in an office space, at some point that has to go up the chain and be noticed. And if that's the case, then it has to be like researched, if you don't already know. It also may mean that he was difficult for people above him. That I don't know. But like, I wouldn't be shocked based off everything I've heard about people interacting with him that at some point it came out. So I think that's part of it. I think then the other side of things is just, you have spent a lot of money. And it's pretty obvious if you're the owner and you go to the games that you've spent a lot of money for not a lot of return. And so now you get into that space, like we said, where, okay, well, people are going to blame the coach. Well, one, you hired the coach. And two, do I trust you to be the person to put all this together even longer and whatnot? So those are the two things that it comes to me. There's nothing specific I've heard, but I'd heard this stuff about people having trouble externally and internally. I think Thomas mentioned on our show, like other agents having trouble getting in touch with him and not hearing back on stuff, other GMs as well, not hearing back on stuff, and people just really not wanting to come to the table with him.
Yeah, I feel like the first, I was gonna say like the first 2 days after this, like Monday and Tuesday of that week, were like the great piling on, both like locally and nationally. Like all these people that had these stories that people kind of talked about in the margins, all of a sudden they're like, well, he was a jerk to me this day, and he was a jerk in that way, and he was a jerk with these people then. And it's like,
and there's a lot of stuff, like as an administration changes over, you're not sure like how much is legitimate and how much is sour grapes that you're hearing through the grapevine.
No, it's stuff that we've heard for a while. It's one of the problems with Major League Soccer is it is so small that there's not always as much space as we'd like to say what we want, because people sometimes won't come back and work with you.
Yeah.
And like work with you is not like Austin FC does not pay me money, but for me to get them to respond to something or work on something or to understand some information, you need teams to respond. And there's not a specific shot to Austin. Like they've never been anything but helpful, but this is an issue in the entire league. And so if you don't have something rock solid, or there isn't really a reason, sometimes it doesn't come out as much. The other thing is, there's not a lot of national media, and we're not in markets that often because we don't travel with teams like beat writers in the NBA. So it's harder to actually confirm some of this stuff or to really see what it means. But then when it ends, then everyone's like, oh, I have this one story. And then it becomes a critical mass where you see one or hear one. And you're like, oh, that's like the one I had. Yeah. And then it just becomes like rolling and rolling and rolling. And yeah, it's unfortunate that some of that stuff doesn't come out earlier. And I think we're going to learn a lot more going forward. Whoa, my light just blew up in my face.
So let's go to the next one. So you told us before we started recording, like you don't have a lot of like specific insight into the hiring process, but just as someone who's seen this before, and we haven't really gone through this before, like maybe talk about it, maybe like what this, they talked about for the first time that they've gone outside and hired this Excel sport management to look at the sporting director. Like, what does that look like? And how's that maybe different from what Austin's done in the past? Yeah,
it's pretty common now to use these third-party groups. One of that is because there was some level of DEI initiative that was brought in. So there's like a legal process that has to be gone through with the correct amount of candidates from different backgrounds. So that made it a lot more popular in Major League Soccer. And there is a case of some teams that are told by MLS, you have to use someone because you've run yourself so poorly. I believe it was open that Inter Miami was like forced to work with one of these third-party groups after all of the like Blaise Matuidi suspension stuff, because it was like, we need to know that there's an adult around the room who's telling you you're just not allowed to break the rules when you want to. So it's pretty common to use these now. And these groups are, the nice thing about them is they're constantly working in this space. So they are always building these lists of who's available, who's interested, what their different backgrounds are. And they kind of will walk now the ownership group through what they want to accomplish. So what they'll do is, and you've heard Soccer Wiser every once in a while on our show, Bobby Warshaw's joined us, and Bobby works for a group like this, so I've heard a lot about it. But basically what they'll do is they'll sit them down and say, like, what do you want to accomplish? What is it you're trying to do? do you want to be a championship team? Do you want to be a playoff team? Do you want to be a consistent playoff team? Do you want to rise high and maybe fall low? Is there a specific style of play that matters to you? And then there's connections to all of that, of the types of names of people you bring in and what you're looking for. With Major League Soccer in a position like this, the big first step is, do you want someone who has experience in the league or not? And that's kind of going to divide that list in half pretty quickly. Obviously, Burrell did not. I'm sure he mentioned internal in the market. He said to me in person once, the one time I spoke to him, the list of jobs in MLS that he had been in contention for in the past. So he had interviewed for a while with different clubs. So there is a list of people like that who could be interested, who'd be open to it, who don't have experience, and some have been really successful in MLS, right? And some haven't. Or the flip side, which is, no, I want MLS experience. There's another conversation, which, when we did it live, the first name we brought up was Garth Lagerwey, which is what is the position going to be? Do you want someone who's potentially elevating into president and running the whole club, both business and sporting, or just sporting? And then you start to go through the interview process and you start to ask people the specific questions you want to ask of how they want to run their team, what they believe in, what their connections are. One of the things I always say is everyone's going to lean back to their connections. So you have to make sure that it's something you want to work with, which means if the person comes from Barcelona, then their network is going to be guys who played at Barcelona, guys who coached at Barcelona. And you have to be prepared to get visas and pay guys. If someone comes from Argentina and that's their network, then that's where they're going to pull players from. So you have to be aware of that and understand, would it work in MLS and could it be successful? So, I think most of these, you first start out with a number of the solidified candidates who are in the market, who are probably doing this more than once. It's not the first interview they've had. And most of those are the number twos at good clubs. A lot of them have been elevated recently. So the list is not as long as it has been. Over the last 3-4 years, we've seen Orlando elevate their person, Ricardo Moreira. We've seen Columbus elevate theirs, and Issa Tall. Corey Ray, who was also there, moved over and took over in St. Louis. So there's been a list of guys that we've kind of rattled off over and over again. A lot of them have gotten jobs recently.
Yeah.
So that's sort of one of the thin parts of this, is there's not an obvious next candidate. And so Austin's going to have to decide all right, what are the big topics and what are the big decisions that we believe in? And that will sort of angle them towards specific interviews. And then however it goes in the room sort of ends up who you end up picking.
Yeah. If you look at Precourt and company, the ownership group, if you look at the broad strokes of the hires they've made before, they kind of make sense. And so you can see the logic in them. I'm hoping this consultancy group will kind of help ask, okay, what's the second question now?
Yeah.
And dig
I
a
think
little
for
bit
sure the
deeper there.
profiles they have identified in the past are correct. I don't know that the grade of human being in the interview process has been there as well. So you are absolutely right. I think that's where these groups are expert. I mean, I know from talking to people, sometimes the groups kind of run the interviews and the hiring manager, the ownership group's in there, but because they're experts in this process of poking and prodding and asking questions to get answers, sometimes they almost fully run them. And then you're obviously going to go and get character references and all that stuff. That's the part with a Claudio Reyna where you're well, what went wrong? And I do think part of the issue there was Precourt had moved the team, and I don't know that people really wanted to work with the team. And so I don't know how many answers they got in the actual soccer sphere about this is what this guy's like and this is what it's like to work with him. And then obviously with Burrell, it would be much harder because again, you're going outside the network of what you know, and you'd have to have gotten references from people in Europe.
Yeah. So you mentioned Garth Lagerwey a little bit ago. He's one of the names coming up of kind of top of the wish list. And then on the coaching side, Jim Curtin, Wilfred Nancy are the two names that we've been hearing the most as far as who fans want. What percentage chance would you put on Austin getting any of them?
I don't know, 30% at the highest. And I'd honestly say Garth's probably the highest. I think at this point, Garth's kind of got to figure out what he wants and what he wants to do. And Austin they sit in an odd place. They are probably not destined to be one of the global clubs in MLS. And that's a fake term because In theory, none of them are. Like, that's the reality of Major League Soccer. But in the echelon, Austin's probably not going to be on that list. Atlanta was. And that's why Garth went there. But they are ambitious and they are relevant in their market, and they have the ability to do things that are different or cool. And so there's interest there. And I think for someone like Garth, if he looks at things and says, in the scale between RSL, Seattle, and Atlanta, Austin probably sits right in the middle. And so it might be a comfortable spot to go and just be. And if you do a good job, you can stay around for a while. But if you get ambitious, you could probably push the ownership group to do a little bit more to keep the team, higher, because that's one of those barriers some of these teams run into. Philadelphia, NYCFC, Seattle, where it's like there is a line they won't go past, even if it means trophies on the line, all of that, whatever. Austin, maybe there is a little wiggle room if things are going well to push that. And so I think that's where the interest comes from. It should be an academy hotbed, so you should be able to make money off the team in terms of the roster. And then that you'd hope you could then reinvest that money. So there's an opening there more than just what's the money coming out of Precourt's pocket. So they sit in a weird spot. Now, I've heard Jim Curtin doesn't really want to move from where he is for a little bit because his kids are there. And I don't think Austin pulls him. I think LAFC is probably the job that it's like, okay, Jim Curtin will leave for that. And John Thornton, he played with in Chicago. And Nancy, I don't think he's desperate. I think he'll take calls. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he took the interview, if they were able to get in touch with him and get him, on the list. I would be surprised if he decided he had to say yes now and was so convinced to do it. And then he would probably just wait on an MLS job if that's where he ends up landing.
So if none of these guys come through, should Austin fans panic?
No. I mean, no one knew who Wilfred Nancy was 4 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Jim Curtin was coaching a U17 team 10 years ago, and then he was coaching the Union on a 1-year contract for like 5.5 years and couldn't get any job stability because he wasn't good enough at his job. And Garth's great, so yeah, Garth would be good. But no, I think Austin has tried to find the next one, right, with Josh Wolf and with Nico Estevez, and I think that's fine. I think that's an acceptable thing to do. They just haven't gotten it right, and so I think that's where the pressure on the sporting director hire becomes really big.
Yeah, and I feel like I think for Austin fans, like the being willing to move on from Nico after a year and a half, when like it seemed like maybe there was this like emotional commitment to Josh Wolf and things lasted longer than they should. Maybe you should make Austin fans feel a little bit better. I was you sort of touched on the other open jobs. I'm not gonna ask you to rank them like 1 to 8, but like, is Austin relatively more attractive or less attractive when you think about the other open jobs that are out there right now in the league?
I think they're more attractive in that I think they're a higher spending group than a lot of those other ones. The less attractive is they've spent all that money. Like you have to acknowledge that you're probably, let's say we're talking about coaches, you're probably going to coach Facundo Torres and Brandon Vasquez for the next 2 years. I don't know if you're going to coach Mira Torresuni, but like probably. And most of this team, that's probably the case with. So that's the part where that makes it really hard. If you told me they've got a DP spot open and that one DP is on the last year of their contract and that they hadn't traded all their TAM for every left back in the league, I would say it's really attractive. But because things are solidified, I think for a executive, it's less interesting. Maybe for a coach, it's fine, because for a coach, you know what you're working with. Like, you get the chess pieces and you can go into the interview and say, this is how I'd use it. And you can have belief in how you'd use it. And then you could step into that, where for some other teams like Columbus, is Gazdag going to stay? Is he not? If he doesn't, if he leaves, what are they going to get? Like, there's more question marks in that than there is with Austin, for good and bad.
This next question comes from Alex Modney. He says, in our short history, I feel the club still hasn't developed a clear culture or identity. Do you agree with that? And if so, what would you want it to become, both on and off the field? So, like, in this opportunity to reinvent themselves, who should Austin FC be?
I would agree with this. I think Austin has an identity outside of the city to soccer fans, and it's all based off the fan base and the stadium atmosphere and the experience. Like, it's not a blank slate, because there is this scarf, I think, is what people see in their heads when they think of Austin FC, is the Mexican American culture and the green and the energy and all of that. So there's not nothing there, but I totally agree from a soccer point of view. They have never had an imprint where this is what you're getting from Austin every week. And every team can figure out how they're going to deal with it or not. And sometimes it will work and sometimes it won't. That has never been the case. There was the half season with Driussi when it went well and all of that. Felt like they would be that high possession team and create chances and sort of dominate games that way. And they fell off of it pretty quickly. And Nico Estevez, it never established under him and they never really found that identity. So there's a few ways. I mean, I have a way I like soccer to be played, so that's what I would choose always.
Is there like, do you think there's like an answer for a specific market though? Like, do you see anything about the Austin market where it's like, okay, they should be this kind of team?
No, the answer I would say for something like that is whatever they choose, they should go 110%. That's sort of where I've landed with most MLS teams, which is you should overcompensate because of the salary cap and because of the restrictions. You can win on style, but you have to be fully committed. To be a middle of the road team and be really good, you have to have elite talent, which means you have to hit on every roster spot in a way and overspend in the ones you can. And that's just a really fine line for teams to walk. So what I always say, and I think we're starting to see it with the Rapids, and I think the success will come from them. I think you're seeing it a bit with Nashville and where they landed. The Red Bulls have been, the big story about this. San Diego is if you overcommit to a style, it can help cover up some of your deficiencies and it can help things in between. And then the last piece that does is it helps you develop players because you develop them in the style. And so when players debut into the first team, they know their assignments, they understand what's being asked of them, and you can develop players and recruit players into the style you're building. And that's the big miss with Austin. Like there's 2 players from El Paso at the World Cup. 3 maybe I think someone on Mexico, and then Zendejas and Ricardo Pepi. Like, how is Austin not having homegrowns on the field at this point? I'm fine to start an academy young and slowly push through, but like you got to find players here and there. At some point you have to go out and recruit a 17-year-old who's good, and then also you have to develop players. And like it can't be Micah Burton for 9 years. Like at some point somebody's got to come through.
That was one of the questions I wanted to ask is like, what does that look like in practice? Like, how do you make an academy more competitive? Because they have done the things you're saying, just none of them have panned out. Like, they do bring in 17-year-olds to play on the U19 team who I've never seen, never heard of, and then I never see or never hear of them again after they leave. Yeah,
I mean, I always quote Luchi Gonzalez on this. The young player's never ready. You just have to push them into the team. There has to be a top-down commitment. So, like, what a club will do, and one of these, like, Excel groups would tell them is, like, oh, you want to be a youth playing, like, a young team, 25% of your minutes have to be played by X players and X age and below this season. And that's, like, a non-negotiable. So, and like, you just
have to be willing to, like, eat the consequences of that. Because
you have to build the roster that way. Sometimes sporting directors have to, like, trick their coaches where it's like, sorry, there's no other left back. You got to play that kid. Because the other one's not literally there's no one else on the roster. And that's like what Philly has done over the years, where it's like you have no choice. Frankie Westfield has to start because we don't have another center back, and Harriel's the center back now, and we don't have another right back. And like that's the reality. So that's like a big part of what you can do. And then the rest of a lot of it comes down to commitment and spending, to making sure that you have the resources of, places, residency for players who don't live in the market to come. So now you can expand your footprint and bring in more players, and then as good a coaching as you can find to help you recruit players and want them to come in. And then there's a level of resources to go out and challenge them and bring teams on trips and go play Liga MX teams and go down to South America and all that type of stuff. But it like the real push, because, Austin too has done well, is you have to both give the coach the like stability, which I think is probably part of the problem so far, of like, you're not going to get fired because you lose because this kid plays. Yeah. This kid has to play. And then you also have to build the roster that way. And like Austin has overspent in middle roster positions almost since year 2 and gotten stuck where it's like, you got to play Julio Cascante because you're paying him too much money and you can't not. And how many Eastern European center mids are on the roster. You can't play a kid in that spot. And
Yeah,
Irvin Torres doesn't have space now. And
exactly. One of the big cries from like the local nerds has been exactly that. Like, why is Savovic playing over Irvin Torres right now?
And if you're Vigo Ortiz, you look at the roster and you're like, these guys are on 4-year contracts and I'm 16. When am I going to play on this team? And so I think it was a little odd to go to Charleston, but fine, whatever. And it's worked for some players. But like, that's that thought process that happens where a player like that, the conversation should have already been, this is where we see you for the next 4 years. And we have a plan and we want you to push in. You don't give them the spot, but you have them have the opportunity to fight to get in.
Yeah, there was a question we were going to answer later in the show, but you kind of answered part of it right there. But Justin Wiseman asked about, like, why haven't we had more teenagers push into the first team, and compared it with this team. There's an infamous game against Seattle several years ago where they beat us with like 5 teenagers on the field. And I think my answer was going to be part of what you just said was like, it's easier to put teenagers in when there's like a clear system and like a strong team around them where you have that support. You're not putting them out there and hanging them out to dry.
Yeah.
They have a support system around them. They know what they're supposed to be doing because the system is clear. And Austin has never really had a team that made sense.
Right.
And then therefore have never had like strong teams that you can comfortably kind of throw a couple of young players onto the field. It's always been, if we don't have our best 11 on the field, we're toast. Like, we're not going to compete.
And Garth rebuilt Seattle. Like, Seattle had one of the worst academies in the league, and he put commitment in and resources. Initially, they went out and recruited heavily from outside the region because they didn't know the talent was there in the region. And they brought in players from Vegas and Florida and all of that, which is money to go out and scout them, to house them and all that stuff. And then as things got better, they started to get the best talent in the region and realized that it was all good enough. But the things they do, they consistently sign a ton of homegrowns and then they send them on loan. So it's like, you have to put money up to sign them, acknowledging they're not going to play for your team. And then they have to go out and find these loans, and they find clubs and they build relationships with them to send them out so that they go and learn how to cook dinner and, grow up as human beings and all of that and change their soccer style and develop there. And then they bring them back into the team. And then when, they sell players or they trade players away, they don't fully replace them. Like, Obed Vargas was sold to Atletico Madrid. His replacement is Snyder Brunel. Like, that's the decision they make. And they probably lost points this year because of that. But in the long run, they're going to be better off. And then they're going to sell Snyder Brunel, and they can use that money to help reinforce that back or center forward or whatever.
Well, I think before we give you a chance to talk about what you have going on in the World Cup, we have like a tangentially soccer-related question. It's actually 2 questions.
Okay. 2
people ask the same question, and they both have an answer, and they're different.
I think one was kind of a joke response to the other.
Okay. What is the best soccer movie ever made, and why is it Shaolin Soccer?
And that's from Nathan Doris.
That's from Nathan. And then Alex says, "What's the best soccer?" Oh, yes, this would be, "What's the best soccer movie ever made, and why is it Ladybugs?"
Nice.
So,
I haven't
those 2
rewatched
choices or another.
Ladybugs, but everyone says that don't rewatch it because it's really bad in the 21st century.
I knew what it was, and so I had images in my mind, but I watched the trailer in preparation for this, and I was like, oh, this seems like it maybe didn't age well.
Yeah. My joke but serious answer is Goal, The Dream Begins. Have you seen this movie?
I haven't, but I've like seen clips and know what it is.
It's terrible, but it's so good at the same time. And I was like the right age for it. Well, I was like, this is so cool. Like, it's soccer, it's real. And then the crazy part is, it's about a Mexican-American kid named Santiago Munoz who goes and like makes Liverpool or Newcastle. And then there is a kid from El Paso named Santiago Munoz who went to Newcastle, like in real life. Him and Pepe played on the same youth team, which is crazy. But that's like always not always. I don't know if I've ever said that out loud before, but it's my answer because I love that movie and it's so bad. But I watched the clip from it the other day and it's great.
The truth is, there aren't many, if any, good soccer movies.
Bend It Like Beckham, She's the Man. They're all old ones.
There's some like fun ones who kind of do the thing they're trying to do, but there's not
Bend
any
It Like Beckham's probably
good
the
ones.
best like quality movie.
Yeah, I recently saw Green Street Hooligans for the first time. That one was like legendary. Again, like talking about the age when it came out. Like,
for
I knew about
everyone
that
when
one.
it came out, it was like you memorize every lyric because it was like this is the real way. This is the way things should be done.
But I had never seen it. I watched it last year, and I thought it absolutely sucked.
Yeah,
It's such a bad movie. It's like, aside from glorifying like violence and like the worst parts of soccer fandom, it's also just a poorly made film. And I like got mad about how popular it was when I was growing up.
Did you? It's crazy that Elijah Wood's in that movie.
It really is.
Like, what a big person to be in that movie. Can I throw out 2 documentaries that are old? So one is Next Goal Wins, which was the Thomas Rongen, who coached in the U.S., goes and coaches the American Samoa team, which is the worst team in the world. They made an actual film about it with Michael
Taika
Fassbender.
Waititi directed it.
And I never actually saw that movie, so maybe that one's good. And then the other one was a movie called, I want to say it's called Pelota, where these 2 Americans who played college soccer, they went around the world and played pickup soccer. No, that's not what it's called. I got to find the name now. I will send it to you and then you can read it out later.
Okay.
And they went and played pickup soccer around the world and they go into like a Bolivian prison. It's like basically a YouTube video, but it was before people knew that they could go do that. Yeah. And it's great. So I don't know. Those are 2 that popped in my head as well.
We'll find the name and put it in the show notes if listeners are interested. But yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Wait, so neither of you picked Escape to Victory, which is the one that we had on VHS.
Pelota was the name of the movie.
And I watched a whole bunch as a kid, the Pele and Stallone movie. But yeah, I think it is probably terrible. Like when I was like 7, it was great.
I watched it
Pele
probably
should have
20
won
years
Best
ago.
Actor that year.
Really?
No.
Oh. I was like blown away.
David, that's all we got for you. Before we let you go, please tell our listeners what SoccerWise has going on during the World Cup, because you are going to be busy, right?
Yes. So SoccerWise is part of a bigger group called Kickback Soccer Media, and we are doing a daily World Cup show. At a minimum, we are going to add more to that. So every day at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, we're going to do a live show on our YouTube pages. It's called First Touch and SoccerWise. It'll be on the SoccerWise page as well, so you can subscribe to either of them, and then immediately they'll come out as a podcast. So we'll do recap of the day before, preview of the day to come. Like, I don't know if people have looked at the schedules, but it's nuts. From like 3 p.m. Eastern time through like midnight or 2 a.m., there are games. So we're going to sort of get you like up to speed on all of it. Enjoy the vibes. We're going to be interviewing a ton of people who are going to be around at games, and then follow us on social media because we'll have a ton of videos that we'll be creating of fans around different markets and around the world. And then we're going to do a preview show a few days before every USMNT game with Matt Doyle and Tommy Scoops, and then some other guests. And then we're going to do live reaction shows after each US game as well. So if you have things to complain about or be happy about, like it was coming out of the Senegal game, or you just kind of want to live in the vibes a little bit longer, which is kind of how I feel most of the time when I watch big sports games, you can come join us there. So we'll do those on YouTube as well, and they'll go up as a podcast on the SoccerWise feed, and we'll keep covering NWSL. So if you want to stay up to date, even through the break and with the Challenge Cup coming, we'll be there. But we are going to be full bore every single day on the World Cup. So if you enjoy the sport, I feel like we have as good a voices to talk about it as anyone. Susanna Fuller, Matt Doyle. We're going to have some of our really close soccer friends that are going to come on consistently. Michele Giannone, who was on with us last weekend, is always going to be a guest with us. So if you enjoy, good soccer conversation but fun, I hope we are going to be the place for you. And if you know anyone who you're trying to get into the sport, we've got a lot of stuff already up. Like, we have a short episode about every country in the World Cup, their histories, their legends, all that type of stuff, what made the game in their country. So you can go listen to those on our First Touch feed. So I hope as people come to soccer over the next month, you can help us share it.
Yeah, well, I don't know how many of our listeners we need to tell this, but check out SoccerWise, check out Kickback. They're great. And David, I mean this sincerely, David's one of the best in the game, if not the best in the game covering American soccer right now.
Appreciate
so
that.
Give them your attention, give them your money, give them your ears, because they're really good at what they do. David, we know you're busy. Thanks for taking the time this week.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hopefully next time it'll be on a lighter note, a little more fun.
Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by Sage Wilson Realty. Are you looking to score your next home while rates are lower than they have been recently? Don't get caught offside in this market.
The right strategy can turn today's opportunity into your winning goal. If you're looking for Sage Real Estate advice in Austin, contact our friends at Sage Wilson Realty. Be sure to check them out online at sagewilson.com. All right, we are back. We want to thank David Goss one more time. Check out SoccerWise. Check out Kickback Committee and all the stuff they're going to be doing during the World Cup. They are great. Jeremiah, we got quite a few listener questions. I don't know that we're going to be able to get to all of them today, but if we don't get to some of them, we will move those to next week's show. Once again, World Cup break. We're going to have some time to play during these shows. So we'll save some of those and do them next week. But let's get started. This first one comes from Phil West. We just talked to David Goss about the national. He's part of the national landscape. Phil asks, what do you love most about being part of this Austin FC media landscape? I maintain it's the best and most robust of any MLS city.
I don't follow a lot of the other city landscapes. I don't know like that to be true, but I would say I think the thing that I appreciate the most about this Austin FC media landscape is everybody gets along. Like, I think we've talked about 2 or 3 other media outlets on this show already, and I'm happy to give credit to any other one, and I feel like it's all the same way around. Like, we're all just trying to do our best to create the best content for Austin. And I tell people, I post on Reddit every week, and I'm like, you should listen to every show. Just listen to ours first. That's all I'm
Yeah.
asking for you to do. But like, I don't think there's any beef in the Austin FC media landscape.
Yeah, absolutely not. Like, a lot of respect for all these guys, and just genuinely like them all as well. Like, we'll see them around, spend time with them. So yeah, that's definitely, I'll say the same thing. I don't have anything to add there. It's just, I think, like, looking around the league, I feel like Seattle, kind of with the Sounder at Heart community, they have a pretty robust thing going there. I'm hoping like the Austin thing can continue to grow. Like, they've been around for a lot longer, but given that we are still kind of some of the new guys, that given some time, I think I agree with Phil. We already are towards the top as far as just like diversity and the amount of talent in this space that's doing this kind of thing. But hopefully we can keep growing.
Yeah, and I think the Seattle thing too is they win because remember when we were affiliated with the Striker for a little while, there was like that soccer show in Dallas that went on for a long time, and it feels like those guys just gave up because you get tired of talking about a losing team eventually. So that's another part of it too. I'm going to go to the next question because this is something that I almost put in the outline. So Forbes put out this article this past week about the world's most valuable soccer teams. Austin rates 30th. To the uninitiated, there was a surprising amount of MLS teams in the top 30. The question is, Austin FC can't actually be the 30th most valuable team in the world, can it really? So, Landon, you have some reasons why it is probably true.
Yeah, this question is from Tim's, and your incredulity is understandable here, because if you look at the quality of play between MLS and these other huge leagues over in Europe, which is where a lot of these other teams are that are on this list, it doesn't make sense as to why it would be this way. But there was Forbes put out kind of an explainer article, and they touched on some of these things, but the main reasons they mention, first of which is promotion relegation. That I know that a lot of fans would like to see that implemented in the US, and it is exciting. It is fun. But if you're the owner of a team, that is not something that you are going to willingly open yourself up to if you don't have to. And so that is part of why MLS is so valuable, because if you have a bad season, the value of the team that you just bought doesn't get cut in half out of nowhere. Like, it's a slow process. And so that's a very businessy way to look at it, but it's true. And that is why, I mean, it's Forbes. So you're going to expect it not to be businessy,
Right.
but that is part of why.
Yeah, that was just what I was thinking. Like, yeah, it's kind of, maybe as a fan, not great, but and I guess like the other thing is the just predictability of your player spend, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know how much you're going to spend on your roster, even when some teams like spend a lot on their DPs. Like, it's very predictable, and it's if you don't want to spend a lot, you don't have to spend a lot either. You don't have to buy Leo Messi. If you're Colorado, you want to do whatever with one DP spot or whatever, you're able to do that and like protect your investment.
Yeah, wherever you are in the European landscape, there's a good chance that you are in an arms race against somebody. Like, if you're at the top of one of the big leagues, you're in an arms race against the other teams at the top and like getting into Champions League and competing in Champions League. If you're towards the bottom, you're in an arms race for teams who are trying to stay up or not get relegated or trying to get promoted from a lower division. So you are often spending almost every dime that you make. And so if you look at just revenues at a lot of these teams, probably most of these teams, they're going to be much higher than what Austin FC or any MLS club is making. Like, is just the money coming in, but the amount that you have to spend to stay competitive and stay relevant is also extremely high. And so that's part of it as well. I think the other thing is just like the room for growth, where these teams, and going back to Pro Rel, like not only is or most of these teams, there's not like a ton of overhead that they're going to grow into. The Premier League can't really get much bigger. Like it can, and I'm sure there's trying to make it that way, but it can't get so much bigger than it already is. And going back to the Pro Rel point, a specific team can get smaller and poorer if you don't play your cards right. MLS isn't that way, and it is actively growing. And so you can buy into MLS, not really worry about winning or overachieving at all, and your valuation will go up and up and up. And we've seen a lot of owners buy in and kind of take advantage of that over the existence of MLS. So they're all kind of cynical and not always great reasons for us, the fans, but this is why, like, these valuations are real. And like, I've seen people accuse them of being like inflated or trumped up, but then when you look at the prices that teams that have sold are going for, they match up more or less with what those valuations are.
Yeah, they do. And that you can't just look past the fact that the American economy is the largest economy in the world. So we're always going to have an inherent advantage when it comes to anything, on that, just because the eye-popping amount of money, which socially maybe is not great, but like it works for sports owners.
This next one is from Andrew Urban. He has a couple here. One of them I think is pretty quick. Andrew asked, on Jeremiah's various travels, where's the strangest place he's done the show from?
I don't think I've done the show from a terribly strange place. My setups are often kind of strange, which you've seen, which is like
Mike in an ice bucket.
Yeah, Mike in an ice bucket, and like the little coffee tray like flipped over to give the laptop some height to be able to like look at a screen. The one thing I want to remember is we interviewed Brad Stuver 2 years ago, and I was in the middle of a conference in Denver, and I went to the stairwell and like sat on the floor in a stairwell because it was like the quietest place in the whole building. So that was probably the oddest spot that I've ever done one. And I think maybe we interviewed Felipe when I was in a car in a parking lot before going into a meeting. I think that's the other one that we did. And my car may have overheated, and you may have finished the interview by yourself, I think, if I remember that right. Those are my top two.
Maybe. I don't remember anything that happened yesterday. But I think for me, the weirdest one was recording in my wife's childhood bedroom.
Yeah.
Around, surrounded by haunted dolls.
Yeah. Didn't you do one like in your office when it was like dark and late at some point too?
Oh yeah, my internet was out, and I went into South Congress and worked from like my work office, which is just a big open space. It wasn't like my desk in a closed room. It was just a big open area. Andrew's other question is, given the collective ownership of the league, do you think there's pressure from other owners to the clubs that aren't performing to get their crap together? Or do you think they sit around and are like, hey, we're good if you, Kansas City, suck for a year to get your house in order, and we'll pick up the slack since we're all owned by the same people? Just wondering where the communication / collusion limits are within the ownership. I think that probably is partially true, but I think there's another side to that coin in that they're all owned by the same people, and like, okay, if a team is not pulling their weight, like, you're making me make less money.
I think that's a very fair point. And I think that, Goss talked about this a little bit just with MLS, like talking to Miami about like, maybe you should hire somebody who knows what they're doing. Like, there's a collective benefit for everybody to try a little bit harder and be a little bit better to like raise, as a lifelong Austin fan, raising the floor feels like a concept that we talk about a lot, but like, it's not going to be okay for somebody to like drag the league collectively down from behind. But I think there's also like very different opinions, and we hear this all the time. Like there are owners and clubs that want to spend a lot of money and want to blow the locks off the wallets because it will make them a lot. And there's this whole like unambitious part of the ownership cabal that like doesn't want to do that because they want to protect their investments, like we just talked about. And it's just there's always going to be that tension.
Yeah, just knowing like who these ownership groups are, they're extremely rich people who have made their money doing other things. I would imagine the tone is very rarely like, "Oh, you're down on your luck this year, bud. It's okay. We got your back. You'll get them next time." I bet it's more like, "Don't mess this up for me."
Speaking of billionaires, again, yeah. I'm going to do the Trevor Allison. There's 3 questions here, and I want you to define all of them, or each of them, one at a time. So this is, what is your definition of these sometimes debated soccer terms? The first one is the term half volley. And I love that you have a link to a reel, because I can't wait in an audio format for you to describe what this looks like.
Well, the reel is not, it is clips, but it's Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer and Micah Richards watching a clip, and they get into an argument. So I'll try to remember
Proper
to put
English footballers.
This clip into the show notes. But Micah Richards has one definition of a volley and a half volley, and then the other guys, the 2 older guys, have a different definition of a volley and a half volley. And a volley, I think, is, well, it's not. The clear idea of a volley is when a ball is in the air, a player strikes it out of the air before it hits the ground. That is undeniably a volley. I think where the gray area comes in is a half volley. Some people would say is the ball bounces once and you hit it while it's in the air. The other definition of a half volley is it's when the ball hits the ground and you catch it right as it's raising off the ground. It does that little baby bounce and you hit it then. Some people say that's a half volley. I'm not going to say what's right. I don't know what's right or what more people believe. I like the previous definition of like, if you hit it out of the air, it's a volley. If it bounces once, it's a half volley, regardless of when you hit it. Just because I think that those things happen more often. And I think it's easier to use those definitions based on what you actually see in games. And whereas the other one, like there's another way to describe it and it doesn't happen as often. So I don't know. I don't know what's right, but I'm on Micah Richards' team here.
All right. Yeah, I would be too, then, to give that description. The next one is smash and grab.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'd be curious to know like what the controversial takes on this one is. To me, smash and grab is like a team is maybe playing a little bit cynical and scores a goal against the run of play and ends up winning because of that.
And they win the Champions League in PKs. After that, like, is that where you're going with Arsenal?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. No, I don't know what the argument is on that one, because that's the same way I see it, and I feel like that's the way it's always described. I guess in individual match, you could talk about like how dominant was one team or the other, and like how many half chances were converted, and do some people say things are a smash and grab when like statistically they shouldn't be? Like maybe that's the debate, but I don't know what it would be other than that.
Yeah, let us know, Trevor. The last one, park the bus. This one, again, I don't know where my mind goes is parking the bus is an intentional action. Whereas this goes back to my sometimes you eat the bear, sometimes the bear eats you explanation of like, sometimes you get trapped in your own box because of what the other team is doing to you. It is not a conscious decision you made. You just found yourself there and are trying to survive. Parking the bus to me is deciding to do that. Saying, okay, we got a goal. We're done. We're not doing anything now. And we're just going to sit in our own 18, try to beat us. That's parking the bus to me.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And I feel like Austin for too many times had not parking the bus, but like has had that shape done to them.
Yeah, they get pinned down
because they couldn't do anything else.
They didn't want
right?
to do it. Yeah.
Or I agree with that. Man, you want to go to these Elise questions? I'm going to think about these.
Elise puts a caveat at the end that says, I am obviously on vacation brain at the moment and have nothing more substantial or weighty to add to the discourse at this point. So that maybe gives you a hint of where these questions are going. But she says, listen, I don't know if these questions will be taken in correct tone intention this time, but I have coloring questions. What is the best named Crayola crayon?
I don't know if I know a Crayola crayon name, Landon. Do you have an answer?
I feel like I
Did
did
you
a little
research?
bit of research the other day. Let me see if I can find those
Oh.
notes.
Usually
Oh,
I'm the
yeah.
one that does research on things like this.
So if you look at like the listing, there are like hundreds of colors now because they do like special editions or whatever. I found one that I really liked. I'm not going to call this my winner, but I really liked it in that category, which is Inchworm. There's like some green tone that's called Inchworm, and I thought that name was great. But I think my favorite one is going to be like it'll be in like your first expansion pack. So like not your 8 color box, but like your 16 color box. And it's Robin's Egg Blue. I think it's a great color, and it's like a very accurate description, but also a fun description. So it's a classic, but I think that's my winner.
At least you feeling happy. Man, I don't remember the first time I got like the 64 crayon box with the built-in sharpener. I thought I'd like unlock some secret power, and that was amazing. I do have an answer to this next one. Is best coloring book theme or style? And I like a book that is a like combination. I like the one that has like some puzzles and some coloring pages. Maybe like the little deal where you draw you connect all the numbers and you color them in. Like I like this variety pack of things that you do. They're like a random activity book.
Okay. Like what was that magazine when we were kids that had that?
Highlights?
Highlights, there you go.
Yeah.
That was, I guess, not quite as many of the like coloring activities, but they had stuff like that in it. I've not looked at or done or touched a coloring book since I was a child, so I'll sit this one out. I'll take this next one, though, which is it acceptable to use those ridiculous color fill-in apps on the iPad when you are sitting right next to your friend who brought you real-life coloring supplies? Cough, David, cough. I think this, I know the David she's talking about. And David, yes, you're wrong. You should color with your friend Elise if she brought you colors.
Yes, absolutely. I like it when somebody asks a question and they know the answer and we agree with the answer. And I love that she went all caps on this. And she's right.
I also like that Elise continues to bring personal disagreements into the show for us to settle.
Yeah.
And
she's always right.
My instinct is to say, that's not what this show is for, Elise, but she pays us the money in the Patreon, so we're going to answer the question. Yeah. And listeners, you can be like Elise and make us answer questions if you want. So join the Patreon. We have like an order out. I'm hoping we'll have images of stuff to share in the next week or two, but I promise it's real and it's happening, and we'll be doing stuff with it soon.
How about, can you tell people to stop talking about selling Buteru when he's our most interesting and chaotically fun player to watch?
Hey, man, I'm just trying to help this roster build. You know what else is fun?
People?
You know what else is fun to watch? Winning.
Yeah, I wish we had the flexibility to just have like a chaotic, fun player running around and doing his thing, but I just feel like it's just there's so much trouble in this roster. Like, we don't have the luxury of having that kind of guy.
Yeah, again, we talked about Seattle and like having the luxury of like slotting pieces in because you're such a competent team. The Seattle Biru, like Nuhu in Seattle, he does crazy stuff all the time, but A, he's good enough to like warrant it, and then B, their structure is good enough that they can cover for him when he goes off the deep end sometimes. All right, this last one, we'll save the rest for next week, but this last one comes from Justin Wiseman, who I think we snuck one of his into the David Goss segment, but his question is, how did Landon and Jeremiah meet? Jeremiah, do you know? I know like the general answer. Do you know the specific answer?
I have a guess about the specific answer, and we'll see if it happens to be the same. I guess we'll agree if it happens to be the same one. So I think that there was a series of community meetings when Austin FC was like looking to become a thing, and we would go to different places around the city and have like open discussions. And I think that there was one at the pond at like near Austin Beer Works, and some of us went over to Austin Beer Works after that thing was over with like Bernie and Colin and like much of the original Hipster Six. And I think we were both there at that table, and like I left before the photo was taken. I think that was the first time we met.
I was at that event. I don't remember if that's the first time I met you or not, but I was there. So it's very possible.
We're
Let's
going to
say
call this
that's
our
it.
origin story. Yeah, I mean it's a good story, right? It would be really weird. I don't know what else it could be, but yeah, I definitely remember you. This is the first time I remember being in the same room with you and like hanging out.
How we became like a duo was through making a podcast together and just being the only people who showed up regularly, essentially,
Right.
for a while. So like destiny chose us, essentially. But yeah, I didn't remember that at all. So thank you for bringing that memory back up.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, how we became a duo is an interesting story that takes like a year, or like it took place over a year. But just like with anything in my life, if you just keep showing up and have some idea of what you want to like be able to do, that goes a long way. Like it
Very
goes
true.
a long way. Yeah.
Any of the kids listening, remember that one. All right, Jeremiah, should we shut it down for this week?
Yes. Yeah. Let's just reminder to those of you that didn't get your questions answered. Maybe those of you that want to continue to submit questions based on what you hear this week. We'll have plenty of time for them next week too. So like we love doing this kind of stuff. So keep sending them in, and we'll get to everything that we can reasonably get to, over the next week or two, because again, we're in the World Cup break and who knows what's going to happen.
All right. We would like to remind you to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Come find us on Instagram. And again, we'll have some more updates on the Patreon in the next couple of weeks. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next week with any updates on the coaching and sporting director search. And we'll talk a bit more about our plans to World Cup break, and we'll do some more listener questions, and probably something else will come up in between now and then. Until then, I'm Landon Cottam.
I'm Jeremiah Bentley.
We'll catch you next time.
When no one is around.
Thank for nothing, see you never.
La gente.
Oh my God.
Because they love cheap boom boom sauce.
Yeah.